I've said this before, and I will, gladly say it again. Sometimes, not very often, not very often. Sometimes, though, some Tories say, and it's a very, very small section of them, are occasionally right. And we are talking about Chris Skidmore today, and a piece he's written in the Guardian talking about all these things that Rishi Sunak said about net zero that are wrong. He was the guy who passed the net zero bill that committed us to all this stuff, all these green policies that Rishi Sunak has basically just trashed. Now, there's no one I think better really to hear from in regards to this than, of course, Chris Skidmore. I think he is right when it comes to talking about net zero. I think everything else probably we would certainly have disagreements with. But when it comes to net zero, when it comes to the investment, when it comes to these things that we need to invest in to build better, greener infrastructure, a better, greener economy, these are benefits that might not benefit us straight away, but given time, these benefits will more than pay for themselves and will prove just how good they were to pay for at the time. And this is one of the things that I worry about, because I think the News Agents podcast got this right, where they said, has Rishi Sunak unleashed this new technocratic populism of justifying cancelling all these net zero things because people want to see results now? They want to see improvements now. This is why the inheritance tax, I think, is getting a lot of news. There's a lot of economists that have kind of said, well, if you do this, Rishi, there's a 7 billion black hole budget that this creates in the UK economy. You're doing exactly what Liz Truss did. There's now been rumors that might not happen, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But this is something, and I always say this when it comes to net zero. This is the new industrial revolutional front that we're entering. We've got one side who's like, look, we need to get coal, we need to sort of industrialize. That is the way we're going. To invest in steam engines, we need to do all this stuff. And then you've got the other side who are like, no, horses, people in the fields all day, keep those weavers, weaving. you know this is once again where we are, and a lot of this stuff is probably being heavily promoted by a lot of people who, well, to be fair, are being probably paid a lot of money by groups that don't want to go in this direction. So we'll see. But to be honest, I think, shocking as it is, praise Chris Skidmore for saying it as it is, that what Rishi Sunak's claims about net zero in that speech were all false. The benefits for the UK are there. They're right in front of us. If we do not grab them, you've got America already going in that direction of embracing that green economy with Biden's big bills that he's passed, like the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act. They're getting on with that. Europe going in the same direction as well. And yet, what are we doing? We're doing nothing. We're just standing still, expecting the economy to somehow miraculously get better. But we're going to go into Chris Skidmore's comments, because I think they are honestly pretty good. And it's what we've been saying all along. We need to invest in this stuff because the benefits of this far outweigh the cost for them now. The future benefits and the cost reduction these will bring will be good. So before we do get into his piece, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a rotation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. There is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So, on with today's video. Here we go. So, this comes from The Guardian with the title of I'm a Tory MP, but I know Rishi Sunak's claims about the cost of net zero are false. Last week's announcement that the government would delay key net zero targets came as a surprise to anyone who has followed the policy. The existing targets were fair and well considered and enjoyed wide political support. That is true. They did enjoy wide political support. He's bang on that for certain. So it is a strange to cite our world leading progress in reducing emissions and developing low carbon technologies than to decide that there is a reason for slowing down, especially when doing so risks surrendering that position and those investment opportunities to other countries. And this is where we've said the danger comes in. Because you've got all that stuff I've said going on in America and Europe. What's the UK doing? Why is a business going to come and invest here? All those opportunities. What's the UK doing in these green technologies? All this kind of stuff. It's doing nothing. Why do we need to go there? So, continues. Make no mistake, the government cannot stop our collective progress towards net zero, but it can all too easily slow progress at a critical time when we should be accelerating our efforts. Businesses and innovators are in a global race to create and deploy the technologies that will help us get there. And with a lack of clear political commitment, Britain is lagging in some areas. And up until recently, Britain was a global leader in offshore wind power. It is now China. And you'd think, with the amount of conservatives who complain about China all the time, would want that. Why are we not, all those conservatives are always like, oh, yes, Britain's the global leader. Well, here was something we were global leader in. You've now given that up. All this stuff has been about slowing this down, slowing down this progress. And he makes it right. We are in a global race to do this. And slowing down halfway through a race where you've got the US, you've got all the European countries pulling ahead of us, suddenly doesn't make sense. But he continues. So, as my amendments to the energy bill suggest, enshrining the 2030 target in law will guarantee political policy for the next 12 years, and it will also provide a new legal mechanism to whoever is in government to account for its delivery. This is more essential than ever as we head towards a general election. We cannot afford for net zero to become a political casualty. Exactly. And this is where I've said it before. This is massive opportunity for Labour to make hay, because you don't just talk about the environmental benefits, you talk about the economic benefits, you talk about the jobs, the opportunity, the leveling up opportunities this could bring. All the stuff the Tories said they would do and didn't deliver, Labour can deliver on. So, integral to hitting net zero by 2050 is electric decarbonisation by 2035. Something, again, decarbonisation of the steel industry. Who is the biggest industry that uses up electricity? Steel industry. Decarbonisation of the steel industry will lead to electricity decarbonisation as well. I keep on highlighting just how important that policy is. When will people listen? So he continues. So this seminal milestone in Britain's net zero journey and decarbonising the grid and infrastructure was identified as the most critical area in the Mission Zero independent review of net zero. And this is another point. Chris Skidmore led that review. It was a completely independent review that said, okay, net zero, can we do it? How do we do it? And also, remember, this review pushed by the net zero scrutiny group. We want an independent review. So they had an independent review, said, yeah, we're on course. If we do all this stuff, excellent. These are all the benefits. And of course, the next zero scrutiny group, well, the person leading the inquiry, the people who did all this stuff, clearly wrong. Honestly, hilarious. But anyway, he continues. It holds the key for forging successful decarbonisation pathways for a trio of essential industries: Transport, housing, and heating. Again, spot on that as well. Which have all been recently subject to increased uncertainty around announced policy changes. The UK must now double down on its commitment to achieving a clean grid by 2035, or risk breaking its net zero 2050 pledge. Put simply, we cannot view these timelines, informed by expertise from top climate scientists and climate change committees, as malleable to political whim. They are graduated, clear pathways that must not be tampered with at this stage of innovation and investment as we transform our economy. And I reiterate that odds that we said we are in this global race. We are transforming our economy to a greener economy. And yet, Rishi Sunak just come out and gone, don't want to do that. I thought Rishi Sunak was all about to be the growth. I thought we were all, let's go for growth. We've got to get the economy growing. Here's one way you could get the economy going, and yet he's not. Once again, inaction man strikes again with his non-existent kung fu grip. But anyway, the rhetoric that net zero transition is at odds with the economy is false. There is an obvious fact that it will cost Britain dearly if it fails to attract international investment at a centre for sustainable finance, something the cost of net zero, and that is the only time last year that Britain was headed towards a winter with fuel poverty reached record levels, and some households were choosing between their heating their homes or putting food on the table. The energy transition would help address this. He is right on this. Once again, if David Cameron had fulfilled his policies for the offshore wind farms, those energy crises we have experienced and probably going to go into again would not be as bad as they are, because we would have a lot more offshore wind farms, potentially even onshore wind farms, that could have alleviated this and fed into the national grid. It's not rocket science. It really is not rocket science. So the rhetoric that the net zero, where are we? There we are. We'll hold this. So volatile international gas markets have fueled the cost of living crisis in the UK. Due to 80% of our home heatings being reliant on gas, clean energy provides not only the means to achieving net zero within the timescale we've committed to, but also offers households a vital financial lifeline through decreasing the price of energy. Domestically produced, cheap, clean energy will not be subject to the same price shocks we have seen with gas, making sure that the energy crisis was truly a once-in-a-generational occurrence. And he's right. Clean energy, green energy, is not susceptible to the same sort of price shocks we see with gas and oil. That is something, once again, they don't want to admit. But he is right on that. He's absolutely right on that. You could have all that feed, all domestically produced, all solved. Would decrease the price of energy. As we said, if David Cameron had committed to that, as he promised he would do, but then you turned on, energy would not be as expensive as it is now. But he continues. So, as we have seen in the past year, with grid connection issues, a net zero electricity system is a complex and dependent on systemic upgrades. To truly ensure that the end result is fit for purpose, we must consult with the industry bodies that know it best, to be it those associated with nuclear, solar, wind, or the grid itself. And notice he said nuclear here, because this is something a lot of people have said before. We do need nuclear to help in that green transition. Nuclear power is really good to help us with this transition to more green energy supplies. And investing in nuclear is a part of that. I've said this before. It is a good transitional supply over it. Yes, I know whole nuclear waste, etc. That's bad, but there are ways, maybe tech or stuff we haven't discovered yet, that could help with that. And investing in nuclear for building new plants and things like that could maybe help with those problems. You know, it's got to be there. That funding has got to be there. It doesn't just happen magically by itself. So be it associated with the nuclear, solar, wind, or the grid itself, as well with those respective supply chains, which is why, as part of the Mission Zero coalition, I announced in March of this year, we'll be launching the Power Generation Network to take forward an ambitious program of recommendations to the government to support the decarbonisation of the UK's power infrastructure. Again, another vital part of stuff that we need to do. Power infrastructure, something else the government has ignored for quite some time. So, the purpose of this coalition is to ensure that gaps in public policy are filled to enable Britain to receive the economic rewards for this global race to net zero. We exist to support Britain on its path, and most pressingly, by contributing ideas that aid the design and the delivery of a genuine, secure, and sustainable energy mix. Again, all this, I want to remind you, coming from a Tory MP. Like I say, broken clock can be right twice a day, but Chris Skidmore, when it comes to net zero, very good, to be honest. You know, hey, credit where credit's due. He is good. He's saying all the stuff we need. The grid, something that needs updating as well. If he does go forward and does all this, excellent. Can't say that's not a good thing to do, to be honest. But of course, with Rishi Sunak in control, it's whether they will actually undertake any of this stuff. But if Chris Skidmore has said that he wants to work cross-party on this, then that's fine. I think Labour should, as we said, make hay on this, get behind it. By consulting this energy mix, it will be my undertaking and beyond my role as an MP to act as a steward. As I set out in the Net Zero review, the climate crisis is one of the greatest challenges of our generation, but also the greatest economic opportunity. Again, the fact that there is such this huge, gigantic economic opportunity, yet you've got Tories who are like, we need to grow the economy, we need to grow it. But there's this massive opportunity here. Why not go in that direction? Why not take those opportunities for growth? We don't know. We're not interested. So there's no future economy without a green economy. The UK must continue to seize the net zero opportunity with both hands, not drop our greatest chance for growth this century. Hey, credit where credit's due. Chris Skidmore, I probably disagree with him on everything else he says, probably politically, but I'll tell you now, I can't disagree with any of that. We do need all those investments. Disappointed he didn't mention, of course, decarbonizing the steel industry, but again, but then I do agree with obviously infrastructure, not only just for form of transport, but of course the energy infrastructure as well. Getting that all sorted out, much needed input and infrastructure needs building into that as well. Transport. This is why you need HS2. We need more trains. HS2, biggest rail investment in rail in generations, needs to be done. We've had a call just today from Northern Mayors saying, hey, don't cancel HS2. We need it. Again, talked about HS2. I don't know how many times on this channel over the years. We need it. Did a fantastic interview, of course, with Gareth Dennis. Go check that out. That's very good as well to go and watch if you want more information about that. Or go check out Gareth Dennis as well. He does a lot talking about this. In fact, he made a really good blog post. So again, go check him out on his socials as well. Really good when it comes to sort of talking about trains and why we need HS2. Great guy for all that type of stuff. Like I say, did an interview with him about a year ago now, I think it was. Go watch that. Fantastic. But yeah, we need to go in this. We need to go in this. And I've also said this before. If there are people like, conservatives who want to do something which will achieve a good outcome, as the net zero will do, will achieve a good green economic, environmental, job benefits, all kinds of stuff for the UK. I see no problem with working with conservatives if we can achieve that. Now, how? Maybe that's where we'll have disagreements. But of course, going in that direction and achieving that outcome, I don't see problems with working with conservatives on that. I think maybe the how, of course, may be different. Like I say, I'm very much for, look, if we give subsidies to these companies to achieve net zero, then there needs to be, protections in place. You can't just have, share sell-offs. Those have to be halved, or at least protections put in place, so it doesn't, all that, public money doesn't go into shareholders' pockets. Make sure that if it's public money, then it must be spent for a social good, be it actually into the project or whatever, be it apprenticeships, whatever. There's a ton of stuff you can do in that area. But yeah, as always, like I say, thank you very much, of course, for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.